Okay, Christian, great to have you here. You've built a career after flying jets as an entrepreneur, becoming CEO of the company that you have founded, Afterburner, applying fighter pilot tools to business. And, I remember we exchanged a couple of messages about Afterburner and max reheat, two words that they mean exactly the same. For people that are listening, Afterburner is the injection of fuel in the exhaust so that you can have more power and you can go supersonic and you get the off easy. But the main...
Europeans call it reheat.
Yes, max reheat. Yeah. Some typhoon we call max reheat after flying, American jets.
It took me some time getting used to that when I was flying Tornadoes in the RAF.
when I approached the Afterburner, I said, I like the sound of this word, So,
yeah.
One of the main theme of Afterburner is flex, flawless execution. But before we dive into the framework, I'd like to ground us in the word flawless. What does it really mean in your word?
Yeah, look, I think, there's so much you can learn from fighter pilots, the world, the culture, the systems. I mean, it's a system that was developed to conquer speed, overwhelm, battle of attention, all the challenges that we're experiencing technology now. And I think, Tommaso, as you'd realize just how important it is to perform, not in terms of getting just a result, but in terms of surviving and looking after your friends and making sure that the airplane, not even the combat side, but, flying an airplane, they go up, they've got to come down again. And all sorts of things can happen between wheels up and wheels down that can affect someone's life. So when we talk about flawless, we're trying to encompass the philosophy of a fighter pilot, which is a bit like Vince Lombardi, the NFL coach, where we appreciate that perfection's not attainable, but the pursuit of perfection is where we capture excellence and continually driving into a future where we're lifting ourselves at the end of each day, after each mission. We're lifting our standards, we're lifting our knowledge, we're lifting our attitudes in the way we show up, we're lifting our motivation. And I think one of the key elements to flawless is commitment to a journey that never ends, and that journey then becomes a philosophy, a methodology, a mindset that you can turn into tangible things rather than just kind of, hey, I want to do a better job, and that never actually happening.
It's really, it resonates a lot, this one, because if you have read the Infinite Game of Simon Sinek, it's kind of that journey where in life is so dynamic, and we know dynamic as a fighter pilot. So it's a system that we study through our career, and we're trying to put it into practice, especially with the new leadership or young leaders as well. We try to do that already in our organizations with the wingmen, the ones that I call the young guns. But then now we are just trying to give it back to new leaders and to other organizations, like you're doing with that Afterburner. Do you find difficulties with leaders nowadays? I mean, in the book, The $1 Trillion Coach, Bill Campbell says, are you coachable? How this flawless flex is applicable, and how people are receiving it and pursuing then this infinite game.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess we come to the world through two perspectives. One is flawless leadership, and the other is flawless execution. And when we talk about flawless leadership, we talk about mastery of the three dimensions of leadership, which are the 3 M's: mindset, method, and moments. And when we talk to coaching, an individual has to have a coachable mindset, right? They have to be able to sit there and say, hey, you know what? As I look in the mirror, there's a mirror right in front of me in the hotel room. As I look in the mirror, can that person looking back at me be an elevated version of myself tomorrow? And part of my sales technique and engaging with leaders to get a sale across the line is to ask that question: are you coachable? Do you believe that there's a better version of you? Do you believe there's a better version of the business? Because if you don't believe there's a little bit better tomorrow, you're not going to do the work to get there. And you need work. I mean, fighter pilots are kind of weird, like if you looked at fighter pilots like a football team, you would think that fighter pilots have a coach, right? And there's this person that has to coach, but we kind of baked in coaching into the player, where with our debriefs, with our weapons instructors, with the XO of the squadron, we kind of baked in these coaching roles where the coach is still also on the tools. And I think that's really important because what I've learned since leaving the Air Force was, oh, you know what? I have that. I didn't realize because in the Air Force I didn't have a coach, but now that I'm out of the Air Force and I'm not around all of these coaches, I need a coach. So I went and spent a year with a clinical psychologist unpacking things. I always make sure that I'm enrolled in some sort of development program, whether it's a business development or because I just have, like everyone, so many blind spots. And in a squadron, we looked out for each other's blind spots, and we were a common denominator in terms of all the pilots and the maintenance team and the admin team and everyone else, right? We looked out for each other, but that doesn't exist in life or the world. No one really looks after you, So the great thing about having a coach is you invite them to look at your blind spots.
Yeah.
And someone's like, as a fighter pilot, and as an instructor and teacher, it's not what people are good at that causes the problems, right? It's not that you can nail a speed and altitude. It's the things you don't see that ultimately cause you to have an incident. It's the missile, the rocket you don't see that knocks an aircraft out of the sky. So the great thing about coaching is it's the red team, right? It's exploring all of these blind spots because it's through acknowledgement, acceptance, and understanding of our blind spot, our biases, our beliefs and behaviors that we find growth. And that is, unfortunately, an uncomfortable conversation to have with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you make me think about Bill Walsh talking about Joe Montana. You need to protect that guy because he has that blind spot as well, and it's all based on at some point in the squadron, because it's a life-threatening situation, it's a high-stake activity. You base everything on trust. So at this point, maybe in a civilian organization and in business, this trust is not as defined as we have seen growing up, as you said, without coaches. Like it was like the life cycle of becoming a wingman and then a leader and then formation leader, instructor, and so on, and building that trust. And one of the non-negotiables that I like to always bring up regarding trust is be on time. This is a fighter pilot non-negotiable that we all share, and then it's applicable to any kind of business because being on time is brutal, right? It's like a weapon. But you build that trust with your colleagues, with your wingmen, with your leaders. If you are not on time, what kind of reliability you have? So I can understand that in a flawless execution, starting from presenting yourself and I want to be coachable, then that day you need to be on time, right?
Yeah, I mean, time is something that we value. In the new book that I've written, I talk about time and how a fighter pilot looks at time through the lens of seconds, minutes, and hours, whereas business looks at it through quarters, months, weeks, and days. Yeah. And there's a massive opportunity there to bring your decision making and analysis and respecting everyone else's time to really optimize a day. In Australia, we'd say if you weren't 5 minutes early, you were late, right? And the great thing about, and when I was in the UK and we would be operating with the Italians and Austrians, we'd be doing TP or TP. I can't remember what it's called now. TPO, technical pilot.
TLP, yeah, TLP.
TLP, yeah. And the great thing about being early is that's when you got to socialize, right? So
yeah.
You'd be early, you'd be like, oh, you'd be talking, you'd have all of this, what we call people leadership, soft skills stuff. And then you'd immediately flip into debrief mode and it'd be all fact. It'd be all reality, right? Yeah. And we'd all learn something and we'd get out and it'd be social again. So I think with the fighter pilot, and people can learn this in their life as well as in business, it's separating emotional states from logic states and allowing the brain to fully optimize both, because they're incredibly different structures. And a little bit like a muscle, what I've learned in the last few years is if you go to the gym and you work out every muscle at the gym, it's much less effective than focusing on a single muscle group. And the brain is the same, like all the neural energy that goes into logic. So missionize like we do, we create a mission, we engage the task positive network, we train it, we build up our muscle memory. Everything works really well.
Yeah.
And then when we're disengaged, we're into the creative mind. And for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, they spend time in both. So they're never fully engaged getting the job done, and they're never fully engaged in terms of being present and great human leaders as well. They just sit with technology execution and people leadership all in a big mixed bucket and do everything kind of average rather than just focus, execute, deliver, debrief, go and engage people, be soft, be accessible, be present, go back into the mission. And I think we have that really, cool ability to flip-flop between the two with a great deal of intention.
Yeah, I think the message for the listeners here is the kind of discipline that you build through a structure, through a routine, through structure and checklist that we have, but also as part of the flawless process. Brief, plan, and execute, like you're saying in Afterburner, and you have be prepared. It's one of the other non-negotiables. Okay, or you can be fighter pilot, you can be an elite athlete, or you can be a business owner. You need to be prepared for the boardroom. You need to be prepared for the race, and this is what we learn, because it's death or life sometimes if you're not prepared. There is no discussion. So for us, the message of discipline is because we learn these things in a let's say in the harsh way.
Yeah. But discipline becomes a habit, and when something's a habit, it's easy. Like it just becomes a way of working. So I don't think I ever, I don't think I ever had to go, oh gosh, I've got to be 5 minutes early to this debrief today. You just did it, and everyone around you did it. It was just the life that you lead. And when I first left the Air Force, when I was discharged medically, for the first 2 to 4 years, I found it really hard to assimilate. Like the fact that people would say things and they didn't mean what they said, everything was just a chaos. And that's why my business partner and I and Tom built a really big, successful business, is because we were the opposite of that. We were always on time. People kind of wanted that. But even now, I'll work with a large group of C-suite executives, and they're constantly canceling appointments. They're late. They're not paying attention. And I'm like, if you're setting that tone at this level of the business and you're asking me and my team to come in and get the team to perform better, it's not going to work if this is the way you guys lead. Like you are not setting the example and demonstrating the behaviors you want reflected in your people. And that's the hard part of leadership.
Are you harsh with them? Do you slam them?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Always tough love. And look,
yes.
I even when I'm working with these folks, I'll tell them up from the get. I'm like, look, if you don't like what you hear, just fire us. And in 30 years, I've only been fired by one company, and they were so dysfunctional in their behavior that we saw it coming. So because you can't desire excellence, and you can't desire success after success after success and just expect it to happen because you want it to.
Yeah.
The actions that you do that deliver it, not the ideas that you have.
Yeah. Sometimes we live in a dream. Social media that are kind of confusing us, and you can see success really easy, accessible. The reality is not like that. You need to work for it. As you said, when you left the Air Force, structure and checklist was your savior, effectively, because it made you different in the business. And this is one of my fighter pilot non-negotiables. Structure and checklist is something that set the same language at the point. So if in an organization you're using the kind of structure or SOPs, for example, SOPs are set on standards, but for us SOPs, like Jason was saying, they are set on blood. They are created on blood because they are with the coming from the mistakes that we have made, and then by the briefing now we are changing them, and now we are improving. So effectively the structure and checklist is what we can give to organization in order, but not exactly what you need to do, but just make you think that maybe you need something in a, a different framework for what you're doing. And it's a skill that, as you said, after 20 years in the Air Force, 30 years in the Air Force, you can understand a little bit better how people are thinking.
Yeah, you need
Obviously,
baseline. I mean, you can't iterate or improve without some sort of baseline, right? And when it comes to standards, and another big mistake companies make is they're like, oh, you guys, you have so many rules and you're so inflexible. I'm like, that is not what we are. Like we're completely the opposite.
The
Like
opposite, yeah.
we can't be in the middle of an engagement and then look in the cockpit and go, oh, what does that button do again? And how does that work? What does that symbol mean? Which is what businesses do, right? They just stumble into a situation and they're like, what did we say we're going to do again? Where's that thing? What time is it? When does it? Yeah, it's crazy. So it's, but it's human nature to not want to do any of this. I mean, everything that's good for you is not natural. It is not natural to want to be a leader. It is not natural to want to work as a team. It is not natural to go and do things that are uncomfortable to get better, which requires intentionality. And that is why we need purpose, because it's the purpose that drives you through the uncomfortable thing. I mean, I'm 51 years of age. I could be retired. I could be retired if I wanted to be, but at the same time, and I probably would prefer to be like the worst version of me. Would love to just be, I'm here in Palm Beach, Florida, a resort on the beach. I could just go sit there all day. That would be nice. But my belief is that what we do at Afterburner and what fighter pilots can offer the world in terms of fine tuning and elevating leadership to be a lot more insightful and fact driven rather than the chaos and emotion driven leadership that we're seeing, that pushes me to do everything I don't want to do. Every day it's like, I'm not going to change another human if I don't do this. If I don't produce 48 content pieces a week, I'm not going to be able to influence the world. So you've got to do all this stuff. Like being successful is 90% doing stuff that you don't want to do. is what it is, right? But then once you start doing it, and you're a single seat fighter pilot, you know how busy it is in a squadron when there's and flying is just a little bit of the job. Like actually doing the mission.
For sure. I'm a scheduler and planner, so as soon as you land, okay, what happened to the mission? What happened to the other one? So squirrels, they are running.
So you're never
fast.
But we don't sit there and say, oh, that's not my job. I'm a pilot. Oh, I don't do that. You just do whatever you need to do for the team to work better. You just everything just has to, we call them the SLJs, the shitty little jobs in Australia. You just got to bang out the SLJs, they have to get done and find joy in doing it.
Yeah, that's true. I think what you have also in Flawless, in Flex, the cycle of the brief execution and the brief is something that you like a lot to talk about, because it's really where the process of change is coming, right?
Yeah, and it's what we did, in as fighter pilots was we decoded the iterative thinking loop. So if you look at adult learning, you look at thought leadership in the space of what iterative thinking actually is. It is the growth mindset. And the only way you iterate is to say, what did I try to achieve? What happened? Why did it happen? And what can I do differently tomorrow? You've got to slowly inch your way into who you want to be or where you want to go. And I think that's the lost opportunity in business. It's always about goals and targets, but inevitably we fall short of those. And it's because, and we do this a lot with sales teams. It's like, well, you know what to do because a third of your people are doing really well, a third are in the middle, and a third suck. So how much time do you spend knowledge sharing? So all of those people get together and it's like once a year, 2 days. Yeah. It's like, nah. Imagine that. Imagine being in a fighter squadron and you debrief twice a year. That's it. Like, oh, let's rehash the last 6 months.
That's going to be dangerous for us. It's going to be something is going to happen, and somebody is going to lose his life because without the debrief, you don't address the SOP gaps or you don't address the dangerous situations. So it's something that we learn I mean, I come from aviation culture. I've spoken about this with Jason many times. You know, when I was flying F104, it was different. Flying F104, we don't have
yeah,
a proper
that thing was a
debriefing tool. You know,
beast.
finally we go to the States flying F-16s. That's what the brief. And I think that also, you know, the more the older you become, and as an instructor, you learn one of the negotiables, which is the communication and assertive communication into the debriefing or into the mission. Because when you are able to communicate to the young guns in a way that they understand the mistake that they did, and now they can they have actionable points, and they go in the air and they modify their behavior. Now at this point, this is a super powerful tool, let's say. So debriefing is being in the room and telling each other whatever is happening, and be honest, and also give the possibility to the ones that are, you know, lower rank to speak up, right? Because if you're not in
it is. But more importantly, and we frame debriefing into three. There's three elements to debrief. The first is that it's a method, like it's a very specific way of having a conversation. We call it ORCA, objective, result, cause, action. The second is it's a mindset. So if you debrief, if you say, who do I want to be? Who am I now? Why is there a gap between the two? What am I going to do about it? You artificially create a growth mindset, right? It's you have to learn whether you want to or not if you ask those four questions. And then the third is the moment that you apply it. So you can apply debrief to yourself. You can just think that way about yourself. The problem is you bring all your blind spots with that. The second way you debrief is with a wingman. So you have your two of you who are looking after each other's blind spots. Then you can debrief as a project or a program or a formation or a package, right? And then you can debrief organizationally, which is all of the soft people skills of debriefing. So what's really important, and where we've shifted our story a little bit with Afterburner, is to say a debrief isn't something you do after every mission. A debrief is how you deal with emotion. A debrief is how you run a meeting. A debrief is a way of thinking. Because what we don't realize, Thomas, when I started to look at this, it's like, if you think of how fighter pilots talk to each other, and if we're out at a bar or we're having a coffee, and this came to me 2 years ago, me and another pilot at Afterburner, we went to get a coffee, right? We're up in Boston. We go to the coffee shop. There's 5 people working behind the counter, and there's 5 people waiting. And he and I are like, how is there a queue here right now? Like, how is this taking 15 minutes to have a coffee when the customers equal the number of people serving us? And we went through this process of what we would do differently, how we would improve it. And we sat down and we're like, dude, what is it about fighter pilots? Whenever you see anything, you want to try and make it better. And that's when I realized, through debriefing, we've learned to bring that way of thinking to everything that we do. You know, you'll bring it to how you set the schedule and the program. You will do it with how you have a conversation, a non-mission conversation, and how you mentor a young pilot in the crew room. Because we always ask each other before we start talking about what you did, where were you trying to go? What did good look like? You know, and then work backwards. Whereas humans tend to just come with the problem first. They just tend to come with what you're doing wrong and telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And what's important, you know, as a coach and a mentor and as a human being, is when you tell people what they need to do, you instantly put up a wall. If you help them understand what they need to do, you create engagement, you create a bridge. And that's what debriefing does.
Yeah. That's true. Bill Campbell was saying the same. So we are on the right path when he was saying, I'm not here to, you know, give you solutions. I'm here to help you out to think about things. So the 5th fighter pilot non-negotiable, I call it the controllables. So I have used this a lot, because I coach athletes in endurance and triathlon. So when they are in an Ironman race preparation, I say to them, okay, today you practice changing a flat tire. And they're like, why? I don't like flat tire. What if it happens during the race? Okay. So they build a database of things that can happen that race, because, you know, it's a 10 hours race, 11 hours, sometimes 15. So we are...
But it's funny though, isn't it? I think there's a real lesson in there. You're talking to an athlete who is used to dealing with pain, and you're asking them to change a tire, and they're like, oh, why would I make that effort? You know, it's just this weird, even people that are used to making an effort, we all find it hard to make an effort on things we don't think are important. Human nature, man.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is a crown jewel for us as fighter pilots. We learn quickly that so much is outside of our control, you know, weather systems, the enemy, you know, like, and flawless execution comes for sure with focusing on the things that we can control and learning the ones that we cannot control. And that's the briefing is still one part that we need to use it to get there, to get the result.
I think there's a couple of things that enhance where you're non-negotiable there, mate. The one is invest 100% in what you can control. In that, we as fighter pilot, we're committed or uncommitted, right? Like, we're never in between the two. We're either in the fight or out, and that binary decision making. And the only way you can make binary decision making is to map out all the different ways in which you can respond to something. That doesn't mean you're going to respond to everything. And we also bring what I call intentional contingency planning. So we don't just sit there and wonder about 100,000 things that could go wrong. You know, we just kind of
have a couple of backup plans. Yeah,
just a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at the psychology behind that, and it's very difficult to find studies that support fighter pilot thinking, because at the end of the day, a study can't kill someone, and we learned everything from people dying, right?
True.
So when you look at that, the key about contingency planning is it's almost like a mental preparation. It's just being emotionally prepared for something going wrong, even if it's something different. The fact that we thought about it and we gave ourselves confidence that, oh, if something went wrong, we could figure it out. It's like the future kick-ass version of ourselves will figure it out. I think that creates a responsive mindset rather than a reactive mindset. And there's a real lesson in that for business as well, which is to be, hey, look, let's be prepared for a few things to go wrong. And if something else goes wrong, the fact we were prepared for anything gets us into the mental space to respond rather than react.
Yeah, you made me think. The other day I did some a little research regarding accidents in the civilian world and accidents in military aviation, and basically the percentage of accidents in military aviation is so much higher. Not only fighter but also transport, probably because of the type of the mission, and the thing that in the study, I need to recall it, but it's that we know that we're going to make mistakes. So flawless, like you said, is not that we're not going to make mistakes, but we put in place a structure and a let's say a way of proceeding, a method in order to avoid the next mistake. You know, we try always not to do the same mistake. But it's crazy. Like, you know, if you think about military aviation, we have so many accidents compared to the civilian one. But we keep going, and we are, let's say, the safest environment because we have a process to address and to attack this situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I flew nearly 1,400 missions, and on one of those missions, just one of those missions, I landed short of the runway into the dirt and bounced into the runway, and you know, in a tornado. And I've done that approach hundreds of times, but just on this one day, the flap gauge and the flap position were out of whack. So where you would normally flare and you had extra flap, you would normally get a bit of a balloon. But when you flare and the flap wasn't in the position that the indicator was, it just dropped out of the sky and bounced into the dirt. And that, you know, even within that was a mechanical error. But as a pilot, in the flare, you could feel that something was wrong. And the debrief point for me was, man, I didn't know what it was until the investigation found the mismatch. But why didn't I instantly put in this power when I felt it drop out, right? And because I'd become so used to flying and just whatever, coming back. Even as a fighter pilot, when you know complacency kills you, you still get complacent. And that was a good wake up call that everyone on the squadron learned from it. And we always learn from everyone else's mistakes too, right? Like we share it, we research it. You're looking at, you're in the Italian Air Force flying a Typhoon, but every Typhoon incident, whether it's Germany, Spain, UK, you're all sharing, right? Because we know,
Yeah, sure. Having a network of these things to build your database,
yeah,
it's when you're talking to a kid as well, they're making mistakes, going to the university or not presenting themselves to an exam, or spending the wrong money for silly things. It's just because I tell my wife, our daughter doesn't have the database of things, so it's her experience right now to make mistakes. We just need to be an asset for her in order to say, look, you've done these mistakes. Next time, try to think about, what was wrong at the point. Like we try to bring the structure that we have in as a fighter pilot. We bring it in the family. I don't know how it works.
Doesn't always work. Yeah,
it is a little bit. Hey, you are in the military. Come on. What really strikes me here is how these tools are applicable to anything. Like they're tools for fighter pilots, but they are applicable for business. They're applicable for sports, for elite sport, team sport, and everything. So even if we have a different logo on our jacket, we have and the execution system is universal. Going through this process, and it's really great. Which one is one principle you find resonates most outside of aviation? Something that you have learned in aviation, and now you can bring it outside. And is the first one the one that your let's say warhorse?
Yeah, no, look, there's just no doubt to me that orca and intentional reflection is the key. Like there's nothing, if you look at it again from the perspective of psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, iterative thinking, like they're all grounded in neuroscience and psychology, these ways of thinking, right? But equally, what I've learned from the civilian world that I think the fighter world can learn a lot from is vulnerability. I think outside and probably why so many pilots end up divorced and have three iterations of wives, is sometimes being so mission focused and so logical is not the best way in which to engage and lead people. And the leadership model that we have as fighter pilots, our leaders and squadron commanders and wing and group commanders, they're all from the same mold. Whereas in the civilian life, they're all different. It's not often in a fighter wing that you would have a boss that was a maintenance boss, like the pointy end of the spear stays in charge all the way through. And that delivers a whole bunch of false leadership lessons, I believe. I think we take for granted the level of training and commitment and the culture, whereas a lot of organizations have no training. They have a very fluid culture. They've existed for maybe 6 years. They haven't been around since World War I, so they don't have all of these rituals and traditions. And so importantly, when we translate fighter pilot stuff into business, there's a lot that doesn't translate. And if you try and translate some of the specifics from the fighter pilot community, it just doesn't land. Like people are just like, well, that's all great, but you're dealing with a 23-year-old that have $15 million in training. They came into you as a known quantity into the business. We just get people off the street, and we got it. They're all different. We don't, and they've all got their own problems, and we've got different. I don't know what it's like in Italy, but in Australia, like there's a whole rule book that you have to follow, which is the defense rules, the military rules, and you can go to military jail. So they don't have that in the civilian world. So I just try and really leverage and share the big ticket things, the mindset stuff that we do, the concept of the wingman to cover each other's blind spots, some basic structure, just basic structure for planning and basic structure for meetings and a basic structure for debriefing. And if we can leave an organization with that and purely with debriefing, they're going to work it out, because just like we did, once we started debriefing, we started to work things out better. So that's really the key is, and we have a 90-day program where we spend 3 months coming back again and again and again to help them with that habit. And once we leave, they kind of have it now, and they're able to be very honest with each other and transparent and do this growth stuff. High growth businesses need high growth people, and high growth people learn. And the fastest way to accelerate your learning is to bring a debriefing ritual into your life.
That's great. That's great. I think the psychological safety concept, you learn it when I'm a little bit older, when you are in the military. We did an episode with Jason speaking only about psychological safety and how it helps organizations and would have helped mature debriefings, let's say. And I told the story that when I was a young lieutenant assigned to the squadron, the deputy CEO just closed the door and said, "Okay, dude, you are the last one in the squadron. If you see something going wrong, just pick up." And that was, these guys was ahead because it never happened again. No, but now that you are grown up and you left the organization, now you can think about psychological safety and things that maybe in the civilian world they are more, there is more awareness, okay? Because like you said before, the purpose, the meaning in the workplace, it's one of the themes that is really something that we had and we didn't have, okay? We were like mission focused and that's it.
Yep. But again, we have a psychological safe environment, but equally the people coming into that environment are very resilient. Like we've been trained hard. We've had all of our personnel, we've been knocked down and rebuilt during the training system. Yeah. One of the differences with, psychological safety in the corporate space is you're not starting with that resilience. You're not starting with the size of comfort zone that a fighter pilot has. So it's the words when you say, "Hey, debrief, it's a psychologically safe environment," when they actually do it, it doesn't feel like that at all to them. Like it's anything that is a conversation around my performance doesn't feel safe, right? So part of the translation from psychological safety in a squadron is that's a given based on the personalities that we're working with and the level of training. Yeah. And then translating that across into business is very much like, okay, first thing we debrief are inconsequential things. Like we're just going to debrief what time we got to work. We're just going to debrief little tiny things that, you're not going to go in there and go, "Hey, I just learned debriefing. Come on, Ken, tell us why you fell 100,000 short of your sales target. Let's go. Let's debrief." That's not psychological safety. So it does provide framework for it, but there's some, people leadership EQ required when you start to do it in a corporate environment.
I think, Christian, if you don't want to mention anything else, I will thank you for sharing the cockpit and the lessons today. Hopefully we've given a cockpit also to leaders to look outside with clarity with the tools that we shared today. And as you said, this is not just theory. It's something that we have tested. We have seen it in action, and it's usable beyond the runway. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here, Boo, and hopefully we'll see you again, maybe in person.
Be great, mate. Yeah, absolutely. We are talking about working with someone in Dubai at the moment next April, but if we get over that part of the world, we'll be awesome to connect. Or likewise, if you're here and they still let people into America, be great to see you also, mate.
Thank you very much.